Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yellow Van Stories, your interview podcast taking you across the globe in a yellow French camper van by the name of Fonzie. I'm your host and driver, Bastian. Today we come to you with the, for now, last episode about Myanmar. The initiative Print for Crisis, which has been on the road with us for the last 4 weeks, has come to an end, and we thought it would be a nice opportunity to have a small retrospective of the conversations we were lucky enough to have in support of the initiative. Fonzie's in first gear already, and we are good to go. Starting off with Chiara Luxardo, the co-founder of the initiative, telling us about her relationship with Myanmar and her motivation to start Print for Crisis. After a proper introduction. Chiara is an Italian visual storyteller based in the UK and London. In her work, she explores identities, relationships, and gender issues. She's an active member of Women Photograph, a non-profit launched in 2017 to elevate the voices of women and non-binary visual journalists. The roots for her interest in identity and the power of relationships can be traced back to a farm near Milan, I believe, at least, where Chiara grew up. It is a place that has been in her family's hands for many generations, and her love for the place still finds expression in her ongoing project, Family Farm. The Family Farm, the project, is an examination of the visual residue of previous generations in the form of old pictures, juxtaposing the findings with new original visual concepts and thereby galvanizing a new interpretive dialectic space that speaks of history as a living process, never complete in its evaluation and heavily dependent on the viewer's current perspective and emotional state. History, after all, is narrated. Chiara also lived and worked in Myanmar from 2015 to 2019, where she focused on LGBTQI+ projects and the organization of Yangon Pride. In her project Burma Love, Chiara places gay couples in front of romantic studio backgrounds, heavily borrowing from aesthetics of Burmese wedding photos, expressing the yearning of gay couples to be accepted into the common standards and rituals of society, ultimately to be regarded as equals amongst equals. Her love for Myanmar is still very strong. In the light of the current democratic uprising against the military junta, with rising death tolls every day, Chiara and her friend Olga Steffat, whom you might already know from a previous episode of the Yellow Van, launched the initiative Print for Crisis. Sorry. The website states, and I think this is very important to just also make people understand where this was born, how this was born, and what your intentions are. We believe, and I quote now, "We believe in the power of photography and empathy for others. In times of perpetual connection through technology, we feel responsible to not only watch, but act. Living in a world that is traumatized by fear and uncertainty, we strongly believe that helping each other is more essential than ever. We are therefore coming together to support the people of Myanmar. United, we raise awareness for freedom of expression in Myanmar with a louder voice and collect funds through a print sale of limited edition fine art prints. We're giving a platform to photographers from inside the country and those from outside who feel connected to Myanmar to make a meaningful contribution to their brothers and sisters' democracy struggle by donating a photograph. Each donated image will travel around the world to remind of beauty, connection, and independence. Together, let's send a message to the Myanmar people that they are being seen. All net proceeds will go to journalists, photographers, and artists, groups particularly targeted by the ruthless military regime. We at Mind the Bump and the Yellow Van absolutely share this belief in one human family and want to support this great idea as much as we can. So in this episode, therefore, we want to focus on what it is that made Chiara fall in love with Myanmar, why we should care about what's happening there at the moment, and how help can be as simple as hanging a beautiful photo up on your wall. So thank you so much for joining us in the Yellow Van today. Chiara, that's the end of my little introduction.
Wow, Bastian, I have no words. I mean, wonderful. I don't know what to say.
While living in Myanmar, Chiara actually became one of the organizers of the first ever Yangon Pride, the biggest LGBTQI+ festival of its kind at the time in Myanmar ever. I wanted to know from her how she stumbled into it and what it meant for her and how she perceived it.
I did a project on tomboys and trans men in Myanmar with a colleague of mine, Sarah Magni. So she came over from Milan. She's also a good friend of mine. And we worked on this for a month together in Yangon. So we photographed 10 couples. And then I sent the project to the Yangon Pride. At the time, it was called I'm Proud because it was only a film festival at the beginning. So I sent them the photo project. They had like a contest going on LGBT work. And they loved it. And, you know, they got in touch and they said, oh, we would really like to make an exhibition of this, blah, blah, blah. So I met them. They showed the project. Initially, I think in a gallery. Yeah. And then one of the people in the team was starting to work on the first public edition of Yangon Pride. So like the first proper let's say festival in a public space. So everything was growing. They, you know, they finally got permission to do this from the municipality of Yangon. And, you know, he was just telling me how things were going. They were, you know, expecting thousands of people. They were building like a big stage with celebrities performance. They were planning many exhibitions, drag races, and lots of activities. And I remember he was
that sounds
quite
like a hell of a party.
It was so amazing. I have to say, I wish I could go back there now. So it was. I mean, he was really swamped with the organization, and I remember telling him, look, you know, if you need some help, just, you know, let me know, and I would love to get involved. And so that's how it started. So a few months later, I was on board and helping them with the first edition.
First of all, to organize something like the Yangon Pride in Yangon and in Myanmar, it's not just in Myanmar, but I think the world over, the more gay rights a country is willing to accommodate in their already pre-existing societal structures, it's also a sign of a society opening up, right? At least that's my understanding. So this is also an indication how the society was opening up. Therefore, so how would you describe the spirit at that time in general? Because you also did this this project in transition, which is also a remarkable project, I think. And everybody, I will link to your website, and people should really check out your wonderful projects and also that project in particular. It has to do with a lot of people. It has to do with people in transition, in the sense of protesting for their rights, wanting to transform society, wanting change that they can be a part of, because for 50 years already, Myanmar had been under a military dictatorship, and only in 2010, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they had the first democratic elections. Now, we will not get into the details, not about how a quarter of those seats were still held by the military and so on, but it was a huge step. Right?
Yeah,
and you
definitely.
got there 6 years after. What was the general feeling there at the time? Can you describe
imagine
that?
one big change was brought about with the internet, because even when I moved there, when I was traveling there in 2014, actually the connection was really slow and SIM cards were more expensive. I mean, the years before, they would even cost $100. Nobody would have like an internet SIM card, right? In, you know, let's say 2013, 14. So then internet came and it got really cheap quite fast. And more internet companies came out. You know, I mean, the coverage until a few months ago, now the whole country is shut down completely, unfortunately, from the internet. But before that, you would find, you know, farmers in the middle of nowhere with their phone connected on Facebook, right? Recently. So I think that was a big kind of motor of change for people, for information, for freedom in a way. You know, of course, the internet has its downsides as well. And you don't have to get into that, but this was a really
that's a whole other conversation. Yes.
And Yangon was exploding in terms of change, constructions, roads. It was really quite shocking how it changed in 6 months. You would just see a shopping mall suddenly boom. And before, I remember in 2015 I couldn't find underwear for myself, like in terms of like just normal cotton my size underwear. I was really struggling because there was one mall, and yeah, sometimes size was not good because I'm quite tall. Yeah. And yeah, so but yeah, you find
when you're traveling, when you're traveling, exactly, and when you're traveling, we all know, you can get away with so much more stuff, and even though you're living abroad and you're living in Myanmar, you can always just qualify it as traveling, so it's totally fine. Wear underwear inside out, who cares? Nobody will check.
Change on the other side.
So yeah, exactly. So no harm done there. But what you're describing there is there was a spirit of departure into a new era, right?
Yeah.
I think it was something that was very much it was in the air. It was almost touchable.
More
right?
and more companies, more and more companies came in as well to do business. So many also local kind of small local initiatives in terms of even just tourism wise. The small family guest houses that finally would just pop up everywhere around the country. And this was just really recently because a decade ago it was just mostly government run hotels. So it really underwent a crazy transformation, like in so many sectors.
I wanted to know from Chiara how she had met Olga Steffat, the other co-founder of the initiative and one of the earliest guests in the Yellow Van and a good friend of Mind the Bump, and how together they had developed the idea for Print for Crisis.
In 2015, when I had just moved to Myanmar and she was in Yangon for one of her travels. So then we also did some traveling together. We stayed in touch. And 1 week after the coup, she reached out to me and said, Chiara, we need to do something about this. Let's have a call. We really, really, really need to help and organize something from the photography community. So we had a nice chat, and she said, what do you think about organizing a small print sale? Maybe we can gather 20 photographers and just do an online temporary sale and donate some proceeds to a certain cause. I was like, okay, great. So everything since then has exploded because we thought initially it was going to be something short and sweet, informal, small and manageable. It became a titanic enterprise. But we are super happy and proud and excited because we managed to get together 80 photographers from all over the world, including about 10 in the country. And each of them donated one image that we are selling as a fully archival C-type print for 1 month. So from today, from 12th of April to 12th of May. And we are donating all the net proceeds to media outlets and journalist support networks and network supporting cash aid for artists. So basically everything related to kind of freedom of expression, let's say. And it was the most natural, let's say, cause that came up for us as, to support our colleagues. And also the situation for both journalists and artists is really, really difficult. More than 60 journalists have been arrested to date, and several are being charged under a law that basically condemns any sort of speaking up against the regime. There was a spike in arrests of also artists and celebrities that spoke up lately in the last few days. And more than 100 people are in hiding. I mean, the numbers could be a lot higher, but yeah, from the latest that I was
Probably,
reading, yeah. So quite a few photographers and journalists have been shot at, and it's really a worrying situation. So we're really hoping to make a meaningful contribution.
I woke up to phone call from my mom, like missed calls from my mom about, I think, 4 a.m. And normally my parents never call me, we write to each other. So first I was so worried. I thought something had happened, to either my mom or dad. So when I tried to ring them back, I couldn't get through to them. And then I woke and I saw that my mom had sent me a load of messages saying that something terrible had happened, and that the military has staged a coup. So I couldn't believe it. Like I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I thought, please, not again. Like this can't possibly be happening. And so I turned on the news and it was on breaking news. So I was crying and I was really worried. So because I think it has to do with like disbelief that this can't possibly be happening again, that they can't do this to us again. And I'm repeatedly saying the word again because they've done that many times. If you look at Myanmar's history, we've been under the dictatorship for decades, since 1962, the first coup, and then 1988, and we've lived under the dictatorship for over 50 years, up until 2010. And so this democratic elected government only lasted for a decade, and now they've done this to us again.
This is Teza Zoe, a Burmese visual storyteller with a doctorate in photography living in London. Her work examines the role of women in Myanmar society and how gender roles and stereotypes can be overcome by photography. But let me best introduce you to her by reading the preface to her thesis. I left my country, Myanmar, when I was 16 to attend a university in Thailand. The reasons for me to leave home, a familiar environment, at such a young age to study abroad did not come easy. I vividly remember getting into the biggest argument ever with my parents just after the matriculation examination results came out. I still remember my total score was 2 points short of the cutoff point for the University of Medicine that year for women. That year, the Ministry of Education had decided to raise the entry requirements for girls and reduce the requirement for boys because they felt that there had been too many women and not enough men in the country's most pivoted profession. Up until that point, all my life, I was told that the best thing I could achieve or the best profession I could get into as a woman in Myanmar is the medical profession. In that moment, I felt like my whole world had ended, as if everything I had worked for the past 11 years counted for nothing. And then I learned that my friend who got a lower score than I did could apply for the medical school, although his total score was 15 points lower than mine, just because the requirements are set much lower for boys. That was the first time in my life I felt so angry for being born as a woman. It wasn't that I had failed. It wasn't that I didn't try hard enough. My only shortcoming was being a woman. My mother reminded me that it's not the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. And I know it happens to many other girls in my country. Our dreams and aspirations are taken away just because we are born female. At 16, with my lifelong dreams shattered and with no other viable alternative path, I decided to leave my home. From that point on, my eyes were wide open and I began to notice a lot of things that women in my country are deprived of just because of our gender. This research is the way for me to address and expose the systemic gender oppression in Myanmar culture and how religion is used to justify gender inequality by evoking traditional beliefs and practices about how women and girls should be treated within society. In a way, it is created to demonstrate how photography can be employed to push back such outdated and toxic views towards women. After all, we, humans, must move forward and thrive for a better, more equal world for future generations. To achieve this, some traditions must evolve or be left behind. I understand how privileged I am to be able to leave the country to pursue my dreams and to be given this platform to discuss and debate the issues pertinent to the emancipation of women in Myanmar. I'm not claiming that this is the story of all Myanmar women, My experience may differ from other Myanmar women, as we all lead different lives and share different socio-economic backgrounds. This is merely my experience of being a Myanmar woman for the past 31 years, and these are the questions I have for my country and our patriarchal society.
I was never interested in medicine. I was never interested in, I didn't want to be a doctor, but that's what I was told that I should, that's what I should aim for and that's what I should be, because that's the best thing you could do as a woman. So there wasn't like, do you want to be a doctor or are you interested in medicine? It wasn't like that. It was what you aspire to be when you grow up. To go back to that time and to tell my parents that, hold on, mom and dad, I want to be a photographer, they would laugh at me, and there was no such thing as women photographer back then. And that's not something that women should do according to, to our culture. It's so refreshing to see like women are starting to take part and play like important roles in photography industry in Myanmar now. And for women, for little girls to look up to Myanmar women photographers such as Duma Collectives and Meko Nai, who's in charge, who's helped run, and she's part of the Yangon Photo Festival team, and to have like such role models to look up to, and which is a really amazing thing. And I hope that more positive changes will happen, and for that to happen, and for photographers and artists to continue to have like freedom of expression, we need to win this revolution, because there is no alternative. And if the military were to win and this coup, and if the country were to be put under the regime for like whatever they say, like 2 years or whatever, everything that the women photographers and women activists work so hard for, it will take a step back. And that's why I think, this is very important. It's when I was in Myanmar, I didn't know where to seek for photography education, and that's why I said Duma Collective is doing incredible things, because they've been hosting, free photography lectures, for women and workshops and things like that. So we need more of those kind of sort of initiative, but not just in Rangoon, but all over Burma. And another thing is the access to digital cameras, because camera is it's often a luxury item for many people in Myanmar, and so it's not going to be the priority thing, even if you are interested in photography. It's not like one day they can go out and buy it off the shop. So we really need access to digital cameras, and also like create safe platforms for women to practice photography. That's another important thing, because as we've already discussed this in our earlier discussion, that the photography has ability to say and communicate things that we're not really sure of using through using our spoken language. So women might want to say something, but they're not quite sure, and they might feel quite worried that how it's going to affect them. So I think we also need a creative, a safe environment for women to practice photography as well, without judgments and, without repercussions for what they use their photography. That's another important thing, because under the military rule, they have instilled the fear in people that, like, it became like a norm. Like, when I was younger, we used to say things that, don't say that there will be a blue bus, meaning that the what's that called? The police vehicle, will be waiting for you. Like, we used to joke each other with friends that don't say that the blue bus will be waiting for you, or the blue bus going to come and get you, kind of thing. And more so after this revolution, because of the brutality that the military have shown towards photographers and journalists as well. So, like, not just women really, men and women both who are interested in photography would need assurances that they can, they have freedom of expression, and they can use their cameras to tell whatever stories they want to tell, and there will be no repercussions, or they will be punished for that. So I think that's what's important to move forward from this. And also, of course, free photography education and access to cameras as well.
In her thesis, Teza repeatedly talks about photography as a feminist tool, and I want to know why.
I believe that the majority of people practice Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism in Myanmar, and according to the religion, it says that women cannot become a Buddha, whereas men can, meaning like the next god, So for women to become a next god, they have to be really good men in this life, and only then they can wish to be born as a man in their next life, and then they can try to become, a Buddha in their, in their next life. So I think because of that,
Sorry,
yeah.
Can I just quickly say because I came across this
Yeah.
Myanmar proverb and I think that sums it up also very well. It says, I've stumbled across it a couple of times, and it says, husband is God,
Yes.
son is master, right? So this is quite a common proverb
Yes.
in Myanmar.
It is.
Right?
So
Yeah.
the women's purpose in, according to traditional gender roles, is to serve your husband and your son, and don't talk back to your husband, and don't argue with him, and don't have opinions, things like that. But things have changed, and and it's, if you can see in this revolution, like, women are not only fighting for the political freedom, they're also fighting for equality, in this revolution, to fight for a true democracy where everybody is treated as equal. We're not saying women are better than men. We're saying women are equal to men and should have, equal rights. And then it became a question of, hang on a second, our religion said women are lower than men. Are you questioning the religion? It is against the law. We don't want to support the movement which questions the religion. So it's quite difficult to use words to correct this misconception as well, because it became like this, going into this rabbit hole of like questioning the religion, this and the other. So that's another reason I'm using photography to show that, look at these women, that our society said women can't do this, but here they are doing these things, and how incredible and strong they are. So in a way, sort of to tackle that misconception as well, I suppose. So I think that for gender equality in Myanmar, I think photography can be a really useful tool to correct all these outdated views and misconceptions and stereotypes, I suppose.
Democracy. The ones who have it take it for granted, and the ones who don't will often die for it. But what is democracy? How do we define it? A difficult question that I explored together with Minn, a Burmese human rights consultant and independent election observer living in London as well. Let me introduce you to him. Minn is a Burmese human rights consultant and independent election observer who provides political, conflict and legal analysis, program support and strategic advice to local civil society organizations, international non-governmental organizations, and multilateral organizations. He has been on election expert missions to various countries in his function as a program officer of the Carter Center and as an independent advisor to the EU. Minn is a consultant to Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and an educator against gender-based violence. Minn lives in London since 2018 and is a freshly baked dad with a wonderful daughter of 8 months old. Why he got into the field of human rights in the first place, the reasons for his strong disposition for democracy, we will talk about today. And who better to give us an analysis of the current situation in Myanmar and to talk about the vulnerability of something which is taken for granted by the ones who have it, yearned and fought for by the ones who don't. Democracy. It's such a pleasure to have you on the Yellow Van today, Minn, and thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm flattered.
Minn has worked as an independent election observer in Kenya and in Myanmar. And I want to know what his work looks like, what he's looking out for to examine the validity of a democratic election. If you go there as an independent election observer, there must be something that's something objective that you look out for. Or how does it work? Enlighten me, because I'm just thinking, if you come there from the outside, you have to probably look at some processes that are in place or some commissions or something. What do you look out for? What are the key indicators of a fair election and a working democracy for you when you go there on a mission like that?
I mean, it's when you, for example, if you on a mission, when you go there, the first thing is just you have to follow like this code of conduct, and also with the international the election standard. Like when you monitor election, it's whether it's transparent, free and fair, and the involvement of the government, election governing body, either commission or governing body, or also the local stakeholders, political parties, and then how the environment is a safe place. So it matters in everything. So first of all, it just people look at it. It's based on the standard, but also their standard also varies. But it universally based on universal human rights. I would say, but of course there will be a different, slightly different methodology, different standards according to different election missions. The Carter Center, the EU, and also the other the different. OSCE, so there are different missions, yeah, different standards, but basically look out for the in accordance with the democratic standards, how the election, how the environment is, I would say.
Okay. I understand that. Yes, you put that very well. I think what I take away, especially from what you said, is that universal human rights are very much at the basis of a democracy. They're basically they could almost be interchangeable, right, as terms. Just that the one is a political machine, if you will, and the other thing is something that happens from human to human. Because this is a very interesting definition for me. Definition, I know you didn't make it a definition. I'm just doing that now on my side. Because if you think also, I'm just taking cut the corner to the European Union. You know what's going on with refugee policy and everything in the European Union, and how we are just putting our head in the sand, at least according to me, and trying to just push it all away from us and try to let other people handle it instead of coming up with good policies ourselves and violating universal human rights in that sense. That means also in the end, the less we respect the universal human rights in our society, the less actually we also respect our own democracy. Would you agree with me on that?
I mean, the less we respect, yes, I would say so. Yeah. You say that if you're saying the less we respect universal human rights, the less we respect our democracy. Yes, I mean, because like it also like my experience, right? So because when the military, the junta was under control, ruling the country in Myanmar in mid 1990s, some of the generals they start to use the term called Myanmar way of democracy, Burmese way of democracy, and Burmese way of doing things style. And then certain journalists, advocated, lobbied for it. Just unfortunately lobbied and advocated about it. But to me, when I grew up, understanding was that there is only one democracy, there's only one human rights, and it's international, it's a global standard. There's only one thing. So, like said, if you are not respecting to democracy, human rights, and if you're not respecting democracy, the same. There's only there's only one global standard, human rights and democracy for all citizens of the world. There's no version of it. So I like to say either the European Union or either certain countries we will do in this kind of way with different policies to certain group of people or individuals, but same time we will do democratic values and way this way. It doesn't match because there's only
exactly
one. So that's my understanding. And that's also a part of my criticism. Every time I meet my friends, and especially my European friends, there always been discussion going back and forth, about Myanmar and about a bit of things like that. Especially this kind of certain the treatment towards certain groups of people. And unfortunate people like either refugees or internally displaced persons. Just like that. Sometimes governments have different policies for certain, they're one of the task and mandate have a democratic values, but the way they treat us and people is a bit slightly different than that. So, and that is not that to me that's not respect. Is respecting democracy. There is no respecting human rights because there's only one. So I agree with you. In that sense,
in democracy, you also have to learn to respect somebody else's victory. I think that's very important.
Yes.
I think when I look to the USA now after the elections and Joe Biden's victory,
yes.
I see how much divided the country still is and how people are even willing to go to lengths of saying it was all rigged, it's all false, it's all a lie, because they don't want to look down the rabbit hole and just see, look, this is actually the others won. And it's also totally fine. This is a democracy. This will happen. And I'm just wondering as well, is this maybe something also that is instilled in our societies, in our system, and the tight relationship that our democracies and capitalism has in that sense? Because in capitalism, we learn very often and from the start, like if you don't win, you will lose. and another person's gain is your own loss, right? So this is very often propagated. So how can we expect to live in a society, in a democracy, respect other people's victories when we are taught from a very early age on, basically, that if we don't win, somebody else will? And that's not good. So shouldn't we maybe also have our education more or less rooted maybe in that perspective, that we in the end it's about a much bigger picture?
No, it is. It is. That's. I totally agree. It's just that, for example, like like this, like I would say, socialist values. About respecting and then building and I mean, like how can I say, a community, society together and sharing. Like for example, like welfare and everything. That is very important because I mean, I myself as a Marxist socialist, so and I have problems with capitalism and also this the neoliberal charter of the European Union. Always been a vocal critic of that with my friends. Oh, that's it, same. Say I just can't stand it. So like you said, okay, if you don't win, you lost. Then how can you respect others? Like it's a thing. And what you have seen in big countries, like for example, I mean, in my personal point of view, the U.S. it's never built to be a socialist or social democratic country. It's basically built on capitalism and all these things about greed and stuff. So that's why you see, in my opinion, you see it's a lot of like a what's it called, division between, like people just can't take it easily. Of course, they're also like a so strong social democrat voices. There are some people that, but still there are people still divided between this huge two parties, Democrats and Republican, and then both have their own agendas, also in line with the neoliberal policies. But and then people are just being divided more and more in the last 4 years. And then what happened after Myanmar coup, when the military took over, there are certain, I mean, right-wing, alt-right Trump supporters. Like I have friends of friends. They are not Trump supporters, but my friend's mother she is a school teacher. So she worked with another teacher, who is also a Republican supporter, also I would say alt-right sort of. Her son is actually in the U.S. Army, and so she told the lady about the coup in Myanmar, that it's happening right now. That it said that the military is taking over. It's going to happen in the U.S. as well. Then we'll to get rid of this electoral fraud and everything, the vote, and then President Trump will come back, and the whole thing. It's like it's maybe this kind of thing has happened in the past, but I've never heard this kind of thing that the division between it's really big to happened. That like you said in the U.S. It's I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, in that sense, but I totally agree with you that not only, like I said, human rights and then democratic values, but also we also have to focus on the social economic value as well. But that's an important way. Yes.
I think anything in extremes is can become problematic. Doesn't have to, but can become. And I'm also not, just to qualify it a little bit, I'm also not someone who storms out and is all against capitalism. I believe there is markets have been around forever since we exist as humans in some sort of societal form. It is just
Yes.
when everything else has to yield to this one idea, that's when it becomes problematic. And I think this is what's happened in a lot of our societies. And this is what's happened in our extreme form of capitalism, the way that we are practicing it right now, where we're bowing to efficiency in everything. Whereas I do believe actually in nature is not, it's not based on efficiency. Nature is rooted in abundance and in giving away a plenty. Right. And I think we have some sort of misconceptions about how things work together. But that's my personal view. Right.
Yes.
I don't have to convince anyone, but I do believe
I knew
at least the two of us are on the same page.
Okay. Either you have to argue like just a strong way, or but like I said, I like talking different views, so it's fine. It's just that my own perspective, it's like either talk longer, or just agree straight away. And then I think I found it agree straight away, because we start talking, because that's all my life, it's like I think it's 20 years, 22 years now, like 17, 18, this kind of view. And also interesting thing, like my friends, in Myanmar, and also other friends say there is this. I don't know. I forgot the exact quote. It basically saying that when you get older, right, you become more and more conservative, and more right, something like that. But to me, I think I became more and more strong left, and the more and more go this more and more extreme than I used to be when I was 15. So it's very interesting. But some of my friends I've seen, they were like me, but after like 20 years right now, 25 years, they are more like centrist right now. And some of them are already in the right leaning. So it's very interesting. I mean, it's part of the spectrum, You can always agree to a degree, and it's democracy. So that's fine. No, that's fine with me. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. It's just a friendly discussion, always tease each other. Like, oh, what happened to you? Oh, what happened to you? Oh, you were going this way. Oh, you were going totally opposite. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But you're pointing out something so valuable, because we are really moving into a time as well, I believe, where we are all more and more in bubbles, and we always want to agree with everyone or have people agree with us. I think that's the better way to put it. I'm also as much a victim to that as anybody else, of course, and I try and make a conscious effort to get out of there as well. So that's why it is so important, for instance, to have other points of view and to have conversations with people that see things differently. And this can only function if we respect each other's points of view and just free ourselves from our own subjectivity, if that makes any sense. Myanmar's multi-ethnicity is a root cause of its political division and a reason for military rule. I ask Minn about the historical origins of this division and how he thinks it can be overcome.
You can start anything if there is nothing in root. So the root cause itself, it's back to the colonial era, how the divide and rule, how you see different things. For example, like a Burma Buddhist, it's the whole divide and rule things. They will see other ethnic minorities in a different way, that they are, different kind of certain group, like the strong, what's it called, the derogatory terms, they would use like subgroup, and also because of the divine rules, also sometimes ethnic group also see Myanmar in a different way. So it's already there. So basically, military instigated a bit fire and then used that for their own personal gain. So my thesis was based on my argument was that I wasn't defending military. I was just saying how the system started about divide and rule, the English, the British. I mean,
how did that work? Just quickly, while we're there, how did divide and rule work?
Divide, it just for example, there the central plains, the central Myanmar, central Burma. Also, there are also the hill tribes region. There are mountains. Also, there can you basically just how can I say deal with them differently. So you basically make them insecure. You basically just say, oh, these people are these, and then sometimes you always give and take, right? Sometimes you a little give a favor to a different other states, other region, and sometimes and you play by it. So it start hate each other, and also they put the whole another concept that
you're using people as collateral in a way. Like you're basically saying, look, if you don't do this, the others will do it, or like this. So basically, it's a very cynical way of bartering. As well.
It is. For example, one of the incidents happened in 1932. It was the Yangon, the dockers, the dog walkers strike. For example, what happened was that the labor union asked for a raise, and then the British India Company, they didn't want to give a raise. And then what happened? And then there is also what happened was that the Indian workers asked for a raise, and then didn't give a raise, so they basically fired all of them. Or they left, and then there are other certain people who brought in by the British, who can work with the cheaper rate. They start working, and then the actual people basically came back, and then they thought that these people are taking their jobs. So what happened was there was basically a strike and a bit of a massacre, just killing 100 people overnight and threw their bodies by the Yangon River, and basically it's basically instigated by the English in general, in a sense, of course later after people die, they kind of sorted out in the labor union, and then it was kind of settled, but still And also when Myanmar was under the English rule, English also brought in like, for example, like Indian local businessmen, and then who has money, and then also had to deal with the English government in general. So they basically own lands and doing business. It depends on, like, for example, there are also some other Burmese businessmen as well, also other Chinese businessmen as well. But how the English portray in a sense that just to see divided for Burmese to see them, especially to the Indians, like these guys are like coming in and then taking our lands, like taking our people, taking our women. So this kind of like indirectly, they will never publicly say it, of course, to hate them, but how things start is to do it. So all these things are basically rooted, and then after a certain time, just boom, out of it. To see, especially the Indian as a like another like a foreigner, bloodsuckers coming to the country and then just take it. Also right now, also another, because of coup, another anti-Chinese rhetoric is coming in, that China is taking over Myanmar, and then it's just this whole thing. It's just basically, I think, all based on this divide and rule, and also this insecurity, and also like the whole, the nationalism. Yeah.
So
it is, to me.
I think what I'm taking away from this is, in Myanmar, because of this history that you have just described, because of a personal cult that is also based on, like you pointed out, the discrimination of certain ethnic groups, based on a long history of that, based on the structure of the military that created a society as well, obviously in its own image. And then going back to what we said very much in the beginning of universal human rights being an indicator and the very foundation of democracy, this is most probably the biggest challenge then for Burmese society, to overcome these societal structures as they have been established over years,
Yes.
and come together as one, respecting each other as one with all the differences. And only this will be leading the way to democracy, ultimately.
To a federal union, democratic federal union.
Yes.
That's what we are fighting for right now, and I totally agree with that. But but we all still need more ethnic minorities, and then more inclusive government.
The conversation with Minn brought a lot to the surface about my own relationship with democracy and about my contribution to it. I would therefore like to share the outro of the episode with you, my own reflections, for as little or as much value as you give them. And with this, we've come to the end of this week's trip in the Yellow Van, an episode triggering a lot of realizations in me. For instance, how the strength of a free, pluralistic, and democratic society lies in my understanding of opposition as the very blessing I so often wrongfully seek in outside confirmation. Because, after all, our democracies are vulnerable, and they will only ever be as strong as my relationship and respect with the ones of a contrary opinion to my own. Democratic preservation is therefore something that starts with me, not with the others. The feeling of superiority has on many an occasion been instilled in me, leading to a missionary zeal that breaks relationships instead of building them. Through my conversations with Teza and Minn, I learned that there are a lot of reasons for hope and optimism for the future of Myanmar. One reason in particular is the role of the Burmese women, who are not only fighting for political freedom, but for a society built on equality. Their blossoming self-esteem is a weapon, and there is no turning back of the clock. And Teza will tell you why.
Aung San Suu Kyi has been, detained along with many of her, leadership positions from her party. So people didn't have any leader in this revolution. So that's another, exciting things about this revolution, because there is no one person leading this. Everybody is leading this revolution and stuff. So on 4th of February, Teza mom, she was one of the first one to start marching on the street, and then many thousands of people joined in. So she became the face of it, So if you think about like Burmese proverbs saying women are weak and defenseless, and that women women need men's protection and this, that, and the other. But when you look at her, she's do you know what I mean? She's defying the traditional belief that women shouldn't be leaders, or women shouldn't be, women should be in the kitchen pretty much, So it's really exciting. And she's only 27 years old, and I believe, yeah. So, and after that, so, loads of women joined in, and on International Women's Day this year, we did a sarong revolution. So what it is that, because of the traditional belief and religion in Myanmar, like, women cannot wash their undergarment and, skirts or things together with men's clothes, because they believe that can pollute the power of the man. So it's sort of, it's very outdated, and it came from the religion again. So because of that, what women did was they hang their undergarments and sarong on the street to deter the soldiers from getting through. So to get through, because the soldiers were so worried of their power, the mysterious power that men have, being polluted by women's undergarments, they have to get out of the car and remove the sarong. So that gave the time, to protesters to get away. So women use this as a weapon to fight back. So on International Women's Day, so many women march.
I absolutely love that.
March holding their sarong, and many men even march along with women wearing sarong on their head to show that they don't believe in this outdated, stereotype. So, which to me is incredible, because now men, men from this generation are also starting to see that all these, women's undergarments might pollute our power and this and the other. They're starting to see through, all these like traditional and outdated and baseless, like stereotypes and teaching, and they don't believe it anymore. So I think that is quite incredible.
Allow me to share my closing thoughts of Teza's episode with you as well, because equal rights and gender equality are as relevant as ever and concern us all, no matter where we are. Discrimination against women is still found everywhere, ranging from brutally obvious to structural subtleties. The only way to change this is to become aware of our prejudices and how they in turn narrow our perception. It is not about everybody being the same, but rather to give equal opportunity to all. It is our best way forward to include everybody to face the challenges that lie ahead. Climate change being the single greatest catastrophe mankind ever had to face. So we owe it to no one but to ourselves. In Germany, where I was born, I often come across a self-congratulatory attitude with regards to improving the role of women in society. Haven't we done enough already? Yet, for 2 weeks, ever since announcing her run for office, Anna-Lena Berbock, the Green Party's candidate for the chancellorship in this year's upcoming German parliamentary elections, had to face one question more than any other: how she will manage her role as a mother of 2 small children and the highest office in German politics at the same time. No male contender in the history of the Federal Republic of Germany ever had to face up to this question. Why do you think that is? And with this, we've come to the end of our trip to Myanmar. For now. It was and always will be an extraordinary ride for me. And I hope you could take away a little something for yourself as well. We want to thank Teza, Chiara and Minn for coming on the Yellow Van to share their thoughts and insights with us, and Chiara and Olga for facilitating the conversations. News just reached us that Print for Crisis has been extended for another 24 hours. And even if you are just in it for a nice, affordable, limited edition fine art print for your wall, this is a great opportunity to fill that nagging blank space above your dinner table. Because, as it turns out, doing good for yourself as well as others doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. So go get your print now while you still can. The Yellow Van will take a summer break until 19th of August for some repair works in preparation for next season. We've covered a lot of ground since October, and Fonzie needs an oil change, amongst other things. Not that he would admit to that, of course. New guests already lined up. For instance, an opera singer that ran away with a circus, and an author telling us about the art of writing a book during a pandemic. Thank you so much for coming along on the Yellow Van. We hope you enjoyed your time on the road with us. We sure enjoyed our time with you. We will really miss you over the next 2 months, and we are already looking forward to departing together with you again. Until then, stay healthy, keep loving, and always remember, we are one human family. Take it away, Jim.
Took a very, very long time. But my message is clear. Keep living in the face of fear. Keep shouting that you are here. Talking about bills and tears. Loving whether far or near. Loving in the face of fear. Shouting that you are here. Loving in the face of fear. Of your life, are you standing for your rights? It's the fight of your life. Are you standing for your rights? It's the fight of your life. Are you standing for your rights? It's the fight of your life. Are you standing for your rights? It's keep loving in the face. Keep loving in the face. Keep loving in the face. Of your life, are you standing for your right?